As a lot of you know, back in 1981, the Israeli government invited Kath and I to come to Jerusalem and start an international church there, which we did. We planted King of Kings, which will be having its 25th anniversary soon. Terrific experience. Raised our kids in Jerusalem. Loved it there, love it there. I mean, whenever I get back, I just pick up where I left off, feel right at home. So when I read Old Testament scriptures, you know, I almost take it personally when I read about Jerusalem because I know it so well. I know it intimately. You know, 7 years of my life spent there. I know its streets and its alleys and its feel, its smell, its atmosphere, its sounds. I just love it. But there's so many references, and again, because we're dealing with Old Testament prophecy, Isaiah 33 verse 5 says this: though the Lord is very great and lives in heaven, he will make Jerusalem his home of justice and righteousness. I've been talking justice and righteousness day after day after day now, and I will continue to do so. Here you have a fascinating little insight. First of all, God is far away in heaven. I mean, even back in biblical times, you know, heaven was up here somewhere and not really accessible. But he was also very near, and he was near because Jerusalem, as the scriptures will say, is the city where he has placed his name. There's a whole interesting study on that, by the way, which I don't have time to get into now. But Jerusalem becomes the focal point, if you will, of God's interaction with earth. And as you study Old Testament prophecy and those few passages that are future-telling in nature, and then you get into the book of Revelation in the New Testament, which is very future-telling, you see Jerusalem playing a really critical role, kind of the epicenter of the end of days. There's all kinds of prophetic spins, of course, on the end of days. Part of my adventure as a pastor of the largest church in Jerusalem, which King of Kings became after we planted it, was, you know, meeting with kind of people with a faraway look in their eye who used to come to Jerusalem with their end-time prophetic scenarios pretty well cased, and they somehow thought they could legitimize their insight if they could speak it or preach it or have it accepted in Jerusalem. And they would often come to me, you know, for my endorsement. Well, that's another story too. But often, I would say 9 times out of 10, they were all looking for a rebuilt temple. You know, this is going to be the critical building block of the end of days and the beginning of the new era. I don't remember anybody, honest truth, looking at me with that faraway look in their eye, saying, you know, Pastor, I'm looking for the day when righteousness and justice prevail in Jerusalem. Not once. It's interesting that from the Old Testament prophetic perspective, the thing that would, if you will, be the signature of God's name in Jerusalem would not be a rebuilt temple, would not be a bunch of, you know, people in white gowns looking heavenward. Rather, it would be a people who are righteous and just. People who are in right relationship with God and right relationship with one another by loving God and loving one another. You know, the temple, if it's to be rebuilt, it'll be rebuilt. But God has never put great stock in stone, bricks and mortar, and wood. These things come and they go. What remains is a people who are righteous and just.